Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with Inside the U. Just wrapped up day 2 of fall preseason practices. Just heard some thunder, so hopefully it doesn't rain and I can get through this. Great being out here once again, able to get a viewing period of about 45 minutes, combining with video, as well as just being able to watch. And look, they're in shells and shorts, so not in full pads yet. They have a day off tomorrow and then full pads soon, but they'll be back out here on Friday for the third practice. But even though they're not in full pads, paid a lot of attention to the offensive line today. And the reason is, like I said in yesterday's video, that's the position group to watch in my mind, because that's where a lot of position battles are, in between a lot of different guys. And we're hearing a lot of guys, and they talked about it at media day, whether they play guard or tackle, they're moving around. Coach Mirabal has obviously talked about cross training being a big thing. And obviously being out here, I see it, and it's not just within a particular unit. It's not just with the first unit shuffling guys around. Sometimes guys are getting opportunities on the first unit, and other guys that were on the first unit at a tackle, now they're at guard on the second unit, and they're just kind of rotating things around quite a bit. And that's why I feel like they're really trying to find the right combination and kind of seeing who's going to emerge, who are their best options at all the spots. But I think definitely, obviously, with Ryan Rodriguez at center, and then the other 4 spots I think are pretty much up for grabs in terms of not necessarily the players. You expect some guys like a Matt McCoy, he's going to be one of those 4. You talk about Samson Okunlola, he's going to be one of those 4 as well. Both those guys split time at left guard, and I think they're both going to be given opportunities at tackle during fall camp, which makes things very interesting if that's how they're going to stay, or if they're going to kind of shift back to that left guard spot and kind of solidify that. So it just depends on who these other guys are going to be, whether it's SJ or Buchanan, even Ben Congdon, a freshman that was here in the spring, really good size there. I think he's going to be given an opportunity based on what I saw today. So, Jackson Cantwell is another one, certainly. So they've got some guys that are in the mix, and I'm leaving some guys out, but I just think it's going to be very interesting to see how it all shakes out. And they're going to have to figure out kind of who works well, not just guard tackle, but who works well next to each other. If they have the philosophy, it could be a strong side tackle, strong side guard. They could go with that and just kind of combo it between guard and tackle, whoever works the best together. I think that'll be a big thing. I talked to Mirabal in the spring about essentially the left and right tackle position. What is it about either of those positions, why you identify one as opposed to the other? And one thing that he said then to me there, and I know I shared this, but just because of how things are going now, he just mentioned that it really doesn't matter because of the way offenses are nowadays. They don't worry so much like it used to be with backside tackle at that left tackle spot with the right-handed quarterback. He said just the way offenses are, and even kind of bringing a tight end off the line of scrimmage can make things a little bit different as well. And he really just kind of talked about that. So I just found that to be interesting, and I think that's going to kind of play out with how this offensive line goes. Again, I think the big thing to kind of pay attention to is not just guard and tackle, but who's going to play next to each other in terms of who they feel works well, or who's going to work the best with each other. So, watching the offensive line going through the drills, like I said, I'll post some clips on that. They do a lot of combo drills when we're out there during the viewing period at the far field, and just staying with that side field a little bit with some defensive line work. And I do need to hurry up. I keep hearing more thunder. Hopefully I don't get rained on here. But watching Jason Taylor work with his edges over there, I always enjoy it. We're not able to hear what he's saying, obviously, with giving instruction after every rep when they're going through a drill, either knocking the sled in particular like I saw today, but he's given instruction after every rep to all the guys. But I will say, I watched Marquise Lightfoot go through a rep, and Jason was completely happy with it. He didn't say anything about it, and really nodded his approval, and that's a good sign. I know it's something small, but it's something I observed at practice. So because I think it's really important for Lightfoot to have a good fall because of the expectations for him and really be an impact player. They really need him to step up this year, and certainly he's had a role last year, but it's different this year. They really need good things out of him. I touched on the position groups, battling it with the offensive line yesterday. I talked about cornerback, but the other thing I think to pay attention to, or tight end as well yesterday, but kind of that second linebacker spot. And with Motori back last year, Muhammad's looking really good out here, good size. I think he's running well, covering some running backs out here when they're going through drills. So he's doing a good job. But, you know, is Chase Smith going to be that formidable guy as that number 2 linebacker and really the depth after him? But, you know, I look at the other guys. You know, I think Bobby Pruitt looks really good out here. I think he's got good size, and I think he's a guy to kind of pay attention to. Recently changed his number to number 4, so when you see him, he's gonna have a different look. But he's a guy that, you know, has shown some flashes. I know some people are excited about some things that he's kind of showed since he's been here, but to see if he can, you know, be able to get in there. You know, Kamal Bonner is a guy that came in last year, didn't really have a role, but maybe he'll have one this year, and just kind of seeing if those guys in particular, you know, if those guys can kind of elevate themselves to get into that mix there at linebacker as a second linebacker. But, you know, it just kind of depends how everything's going with how Chase is performing, as well as just kind of how they're playing off of Muhammad there as well. But linebacker is such an important part for this defense in particular, and Coach Heatherman coaches linebackers as well. So certainly linebacker play, you know, when you study offenses and kind of things that the offense is trying to do with its plays, they're always reading the linebackers. So linebackers are so important to be in the right spot and making sure they understand the assignments and what they want to do within this defense, with how they want to cover certain things, different, or even blitz packages, whatever it might be with the linebacker spot. And just a few more notes before I wrap this up, and I'll have more information on InsideTheU.com, and you can check there for a lot more detailed stuff, and as well as, you know, staying to the channel. I've got more interviews to post. But a couple more things, you know, I touched on some position groups and some battles. I think with running back, you know, you got 4 quality guys that you feel good about, especially if Jordan Lyle can bounce back after last season and kind of revert back to his form from his first year. But you got 4 guys you believe in. I think that's going to be a situation where, yes, fall camp's going to matter, but I think guys are just going to be given opportunities in games, and when you get your opportunity, you've got to make the most of it. You know, I think about Shamar Brown last year. Marty did a great job of that when he got in there, and he got in there in the first game of the year against Notre Dame. Did a great job. You know, Pringle later in the year, you know, leading the team in rushing in each of the last 4 games of the regular season. So when he got in there, he made the most of his opportunities. That's how I think it's going to go. You know, obviously staying healthy, but being effective when you do get your chance. And so it might not be the best situation for yourself, but if you only get a series, so you get thrown in there in the second quarter, you only get a series to kind of spell somebody, you've got to make the most of it. So definitely taking advantage of your opportunities will be important for these running backs. But obviously, you want to come into the season feeling good about with what you put on tape and how you perform during fall camp. That'll be big. And the thing, too, with the running backs to keep in mind is, you know, they're going to run different formations. I think they'll go 11 or the 12 personnel even at times. You know, I don't see a 21 because you just don't have the tight ends right now, and I'm really curious to see how that shakes out. But definitely the running backs, you know, just a couple quick things about them. So Mark Fletcher run a really good out pass. It was just a quick out, but he did a good job catching the ball, getting upfield. I thought he ran a good route. I recently talked to Mark about, you know, just catching passes. You know, it's not part of his game that we talk much about, but I think it's so important for him to be able to do that. But he does say, yeah, he's on the jugs. He's definitely working on that aspect of his game. Jordan Lyle, we've got a full interview from Media Day, a one-on-one that I got with him, and had a really good talk and chat with him. And he's looking forward to this season, and so I don't want to reveal too much of the details. I'll write an article, I will post a video, but he did say he's added a little bit weight. He's up to about 210 right now. He's been a little bit heavier, but now he's settling at 210. And just speaking about weight and some things, you know, Justin Scott, a couple of the defensive tackles. Justin Scott talked about on Media Day, he entered Miami at 20% body percent fat there, and he's down to 15. You know, and Ahmad Moten has had that kind of transformation as well. I think today, I think he said 26, and he's down to around 18 right now, 26 when he first arrived. So those guys are looking good, and that's good to hear, good to see as well. But again, more information will be on the website and on the channel, but I want to thank everybody for watching the video, showing your support. I do need to get out here because not only was it thundering, I'm feeling the wind shaking here, the temperatures are dropping. I feel like it could rain at any moment, so I definitely want to get out of here. But again, appreciate everybody. Hopefully you have a good rest of the day, and take care.